Right, thank you. So the next item, number 5 on the agenda, is an update around the work on human trafficking and modern day slavery. And this is a particular area I take interest in, given my role as the lead PCC for human trafficking, modern day slavery, not only within West Yorkshire but on a national level as well. And I'm in fact going to invite Stuart Piper, our safeguarding advisor, just to talk quickly to the report that we've provided as part of this, just by way of background before asking you to update on the operational side of things. So I'll hand over to Stuart to do that.
An update report's been completed which details the PCC's commitment, continued commitment towards abolishing and tackling human trafficking and modern slavery. This is a key issue for the PCC and is reflected as a key priority of the West Yorkshire Police and Crime Plan. Human trafficking and modern slavery are a threat internationally, nationally and locally, and it's really important that everyone pulls together and contributes to the intelligence picture and understanding this real complex issue. This report details the background and gives some estimates of the scale of this problem locally and nationally, and that is important because we really need to understand it. It is a growing problem in respect of our knowledge of it and the threat that it involves to individuals and communities. Some of the things that to bring out of this that the PCC has done and been involved in since the last report, which was in May of this year. Firstly, it details the West Yorkshire Trafficking Network, which the PCC set up in 2014, and the National Anti-Trafficking Modern Slavery Network, of which the PCC is chair on behalf of all PCCs. So there's more details about those backgrounds there and those groups. But some of the key activities have been, firstly, under the Police Transformation Programme for Modern Slavery, we've now been able to appoint a dedicated coordinator for the National Anti-Trafficking Network, and this is enabling the PCC to further this work, involve more PCCs and more networks and more communities in this model, because you cannot sit alone to tackle this and everyone works together. There are no borders regarding modern slavery. It's important that everyone is involved. Some of the other key things that have risen since May this year. The PCC has wrote to all PCCs nationally, informing them about the National Trafficking and Modern Slavery Network and encouraged them to engage with the Modern Slavery Transformation Programme. The PCC has been key in that bid for that £8.5 million programme and remains part of the Strategic Oversight Board to influence the direction and ensure that it achieves its aims. Recently in October, the PCC wrote to all PCCs about the HMIC FRS report, again encouraging PCCs to engage with the recommendations from that report. Working with the Chief Constable Sean Sawyer, who is the National Police Chiefs Council lead for modern slavery and the National Crime Agency, again the PCC wrote to all PCC and Chief Constables, inviting them to two key transformation events which will take place in the next few months, bringing the police chiefs and PCCs together to see how they can make sure the police transformation programme deliverables are delivered across the UK. Some more local events. PCC is involved in how human trafficking and modern slavery has been shown in the media and how we can influence that. Other events regarding Brexit, events around speaking around events involving Vietnamese nationals, back on the back of reports from the Independent Slavery Commissioner. In November, West Yorkshire, the PCC hosted the National Network Coordinators Forum. This is a national group that meet to bring networks across counties and areas together, and this was well received, supported by Huddersfield University, and again sent some good messages out to NGOs and communities through that experience, and some good media coverage there. Going back to July this year, again national coverage. PCC was interviewed by the BBC, looking at the West Yorkshire wide multi-agency piece on modern slavery, and this went on national television that night. We've also supported across the 5 district forums a campaign to utilise the modern slavery helpline, a resource that offers advice to members of the public, victims and professionals, and also offers a routing for the valuable intelligence that we need across. Also contributed and was interviewed from research from Nottingham University, which has produced a report on the networks of modern slavery across the UK. Again, that report has been published encouraging and supporting networks and information. Most recently, BC attended the Prime Minister's Task Force. This is the lead national group that influences the direction on how to tackle modern slavery and human trafficking, and has met with senior directors from the NCA, again to work nationally as well as locally on their investigations and operations.
Thanks so much, Stuart, and to say thanks to you and Rebecca for all the work that you put in on my behalf around being able to do this national work, and you know, it never ceases to amaze me actually the different events that I do attend around the country, around the amount of interest actually that is out there around this, and some of the excellent work that's going on. But of course we know we can never stand still in this area of work, and that's why obviously really pleased around the decisions we made to set up our own dedicated team here in West Yorkshire, and I'm now going to hand over to yourself and Warren to update on this.
Well, just building on what Stuart said, obviously in his report, and also an update from the previous community outcomes meeting, we just want to touch on a few things. Firstly, obviously we're still supporting yourself in terms of safeguarding people who are being subject to modern day slavery, which includes slavery, servitude, forced and compulsory labour, and also human trafficking, and working towards achieving the outcomes articulated in the Police and Crime Plan. Again, Stuart's touched on the work of the National Anti-Trafficking Modern Slavery Network, and again we've seen contributions within that group from the Independent Anti-Slavery Commissioner's Office, and Unseen, which is a charity that actually supports modern day slavery in the form of a helpline. Again, we've developed the infrastructure around tackling human trafficking, modern day slavery, with a threat reduction group who's developed a plan around 4 Ps, looking at prevent, protect, prepare, and also pursue. We've also worked with education, academia, in terms of identifying individuals who present with the characteristics of someone being trafficked, and communicating this to our frontline staff, which was certainly highlighted in the HMIC report, and there's some I-Learn package as well, which we're rolling out across the organisation. We've seen an increase in terms of victims presenting as victims of human trafficking, and we've run a number of operations, both proactively but also reactively, across the organisation and also across the region. So, on that note, if I just turn to Ron to give the operational update in terms of the current statistics, but also touching on some of the operations that we've been running throughout West Yorkshire.
Thanks, Mr. Foster, Commissioner. I sit here and I talk about crimes going up and the increase of them. I wouldn't normally get away with that on a particular one. I think it's very good that we're actually still increasing our numbers of crimes. It says in the report, when we wrote it back in November, there was 127. Our outturn for the year is 176, which is an increase of a further 13 from last year, 2016. So that continues to increase the number of referrals through the mechanism. And when I talk about these referrals, I refer to from all agencies, first responders, and the work we do across the network, across West Yorkshire, impacts on us. And that's gone up from 175 to 240, should see the outturn from the NCA for the 2017 year. Again, that then correlates to 14 live human trafficking operations that we currently have ongoing, Their operations looking at the organised crime groups that we believe is involved in organised modern slavery, human trafficking offences. And there are 137 live crimes being investigated by officers and staff across West Yorkshire as we currently sit here. So that's looking from the victims, looking across those crimes, and we've spoken many times about this, but these crimes are complex even on those individual basis that are being dealt by frontline officers still within districts as well. So that work continues, and we've seen some of those successes. We talk about Operation Nosemay, which looked at forced labour and working with Crown Prosecution Service, where we get a male convicted and gets a 4-year sentence, which we don't think actually covers sufficiently what had taken place and what the victims had suffered during that. And was successful at the Royal Courts of Justice to have that increased to 7 years, truly reflecting what modern slavery should actually mean to people and actually sending that message out. And I know that he was with us with the media that we put out around that actual operation, that increase in sentence. We look at the work that districts are doing, and you know, the training that's been going on there. They've had a lady that was brought over who was trafficked from one of the Eastern European countries to be a sex worker over here. She found it, she was able through one of the non-government organisations to come forward as a victim, appropriately dealt with, and the subsequent conviction there is the suspect got a 9-year sentence for that work. But more importantly, we also was able to utilise the slavery and trafficking prevention order that continues after they've been released, which I think is a positive, because it sends the message out that we're going to continue looking after the victim even after the actual sentence has been served. We then also looked at trying to take an early intervention by the use of the interim prevention orders and risk orders. We've got an ongoing operation at the moment, but 2 of those have been arrested. We've taken out an interim prevention and risk order against those 2 to prevent and protect the victims who come forward to speak to ourselves, and just provide that extra layer of security for them and allow us to act if necessary. Operation Lane Green also saw a male in prison and given a further indefinite slavery and trafficking risk order in relation to trafficking for labour exploitation. So there's no end date to that, so it's a continual review rather than allowing them that time. Some people have commented on that, and I'm sure will be subject to review, but through the courts are actually seeing the need to protect victims and future victims by the use of these orders. And we now, as you know, are working as a joint investigation team currently with Romania, working through Europol and Eurojust, which I'm sure is keen part of your interest as we move towards, and we've mentioned around Brexit and the problems that we could face in relation to that. We've also got further investigations with Poland and Germany ongoing as we speak, and we're working towards having further joint investigation teams working in those countries as well, to make sure that we get the total offending brought before an appropriate judiciary. And there are a number of European arrest warrants they're now in place to have these people brought back to face our judiciary. We move on to comparing national trends in respect of this. Now, as you know, Eastern Europe is prevalent as the origin for suspects of modern slavery and human trafficking, and those top 5 nationalities were Romania, Poland, Czech Republic, Hungary. But that's slipping slightly towards Slovakia, Pakistan and Vietnam as we're starting to work, especially around my colleague Mr Minton to the side around domestic servitude and the offences that are covered through there through coercive behaviour around females in particular that are brought into forced marriages and being made to be slaves in their own home, and trying and working with them to come forward as victims, and some of the good work that's been done by the safeguarding unit, bringing that forward, working and showing that modern slavery offences are taking place there, and I'm sure that will become more prevalent as 2018 unfolds. The HMIC inspection was completed and the report published, and I believe you've had sight of that. which West Yorkshire received positive comments as a result of the good work that everybody has done across West Yorkshire in a number of areas, not just the policing family, but a lot of our partners as well have contributed to that. So I'd like to put on record that a lot of people, many thanks for assisting during that. The national problem that is evident during that report does show that West Yorkshire are in a good place, but we've still a lot of work to do to continue to improve. We keep going day in, day out to look at the problem and work together to see how we can find and spot these signs, and I've already alluded to that with the work that Mr Minton's doing in relation to domestic servitude. And we've got to continue that work in partnership, and the anti-trafficking network and the work that they do hold us to account and help to hold ourselves to account in relation to the work that we're doing, and to make sure that we understand how victims are presenting across the board and where they present, more importantly. And that means continued support of the Chief Officer team sat to my left and yourself, Commissioner, in relation to those, so that we can continue to have those open and honest conversations around what still people refer to as emerging. It is front and centre as far as we're concerned. In October, the Modern Slavery Police Transformation Unit recently published a position statement in relation to the different forces. West Yorkshire presented in a very strong position, but as expected, did offer recommendations to improve investigations within districts, and all districts to push to build strong partnerships through dedicated forums, and to continue to receive the support from the force team that you've already alluded to that was set up much before this became national news. The reform of the national referral mechanism has been in the media very recently, and West Yorkshire Police, and I know through yourselves and the forum and the national network as well, we're trying to educate our thoughts in relation to where that sits and how it should be developed, especially around victim care, pre, during and post. And I think they're all areas that continue to work at. And thankfully West Yorkshire ourselves, and I represent West Yorkshire on the national teams, senior leadership meetings, that I know you all have representation at as well, and we continue to feed that back to and towards that. The national media, as you've alluded to, have been very positive around the work that we do, and yourselves have been part of that media campaign, and more recently the national news at 10 o'clock, which shows the good work that we've been doing. Which leads us to the future direction. Mr Foster, do you want to continue? So we've now got the regional coordinator part of the national team in place, supported by a regional analyst. Mr Foster mentioned the threat reduction group, and we feed into there because that's got partners across the whole of the region to work in different areas to try to identify where these victims are and try to touch them in a way that they will come forward and feel supported across. We have our dedicated partnership and training officer in place, which is now revitalising the training we deliver to frontline officers and partners in particular. More importantly now, yourself and Mr Foster have completed the I Learn statements to put that training out there, but that training on the I Learn package will also go to partners so they can use various aspects of that for their own training as well. So it's a leading piece of work by West Yorkshire to take training to our different partners so they can use those different parts to train their frontline staff without the need to send a training officer out to do that. In connection with the event, West Yorkshire Police are now working with the joint money laundering team, developing algorithms to look at how we can identify both victims and suspects through the banking networks and the profiles of those, so that will create further intelligence for us to work with. That's all already shown positive reward in the identification of the victims, but also a way of understanding how the money is passed back to Eastern Europe and how that works. So we continue to work with a number of partners, in particular Barclays Bank, the National Crime Agency and Manchester University, to widen those algorithms and parameters to fully understand the work that's ongoing in relation to safeguarding victims and identifying the offenders. There is now a national 4-day modern slavery investigators course, and West Yorkshire, through their training centre and ourselves, have won one of the licences to deliver that to the forces in the North East and the North West, which will hopefully assist those officers with these serious and complex investigations. There's not previously been a course to equip staff appropriately to set these complex investigations through there. The work that we were doing last year in relation to the increase in intelligence, we were projecting an increase of 22%. For completeness sake, we checked those figures, 23% increase in intelligence, but we'll continue to work through that as a new operation within the force, Operation Comprehend, to raise intelligence across the piece of organised crime, which Mr. Foss has been leading on. The work of the team continues to be recognised both nationally and internationally, and we've been asked to speak at a number of events both locally and internationally, such as the reach that we've now been having, in particular going over to Slovenia and speaking to them with some of the problems that we've been facing. And more recently we've been contacted by some of the Eastern European consulates to speak to themselves around getting the appropriate media messages out over in Eastern Europe, so that those positive results that we've been getting and the care that we show to victims can be put forward over in their appropriate media outlets over there. And I'll pause there. So.
Okay, thank you very much for that report and update, and really highlights the breadth and amount of work that is going on. And as you said, Warren, in essence this has now become sort of mainstream business, which is sad in the fact that human trafficking, modern day slavery has sort of got to that level, but we have nevertheless prepared well here, and the reasons why we are seeing the increase in the numbers, in my view, is because we are taking that proactive approach, and that often used term of lifting the stone that you use is the right one, because it's the right thing to do. I'm going to follow up with a few questions. So you've made reference to it, but based on the recommendation of the position statement published by the Modern Slavery Policing Transformation Unit, how does the force hold each district to account effectively to improve their investigations of modern slavery crime?
I think it starts with my colleagues to the left on the Chief Officer team, really, in respect of local accountability meetings, and it must become part of the agenda at set times, especially coming during 2018, and I know that we've been requested to put it on their agenda to take it out to the districts and ourselves, because even a protected services crime and the force are kind of team for that. We should be held to account for it. I think the only way that we can do that is to ask the Chief Officer team to maybe drill down into that, and I know that's on their agenda items, is one aspect of that. But I think that also leads on to ensuring that in each district we have that detective inspector point of contact that people can go to, that understands about investigating modern slavery, and that crime in those is the most important thing whilst protecting and giving safeguarding victims that come forward, and we've always driven that. And yes, I turn my attention towards the actual prosecution of the offenders, but I think if we safeguard the victims, I'm fairly sure that we can pick up the investigations. But that's why you need a dedicated detective inspector in each of those districts, is my held belief, and part of the facts and detail that I'll give to the Chief Officer team for those local accountability meetings. And we've seen some real good grassroots work starting to come through, Wakefield District being one, where their modern day slavery forums is starting to actually build on some good work and operations that Wakefield have done. And I think these are the kind of things where we say that it's not emerging anymore, and it is modern, it is part of our daily business. And I think that's a good thing, but we need to make sure that the traction's still there and occasionally turn the focus back to it. I think that's how to do it. And I have the support of my colleagues to do that.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that. And then understanding the sort of nature, scale and threat of this modern slavery thing in West Yorkshire obviously means developing a very accurate intelligence picture. How does the force intend to improve on the reporting of intelligence submissions and the subsequent development?
I think you've seen during 2017 it was a real bugbear of ours that intelligence was really low, and I think that was not just in relation to modern slavery, and it's how to get people back focused into that, and the outturns we've seen for the year have seen a 23% increase in relation to intelligence. So I know that we're stepping into 2018 on a positive note, and I do feel that we'll continue to do those, and I mentioned and alluded to the force hasn't let go of that, and Mr. Foss has been leading on Operation Comprehend, which is basically around those intelligence functions and being able to have the frontline staff have the different ways of picking out and spotting the signs and understanding about reporting and going through those, and the I-Learn package that will also raise that awareness and keep tipping it back. We know about, we tell them once, we tell them twice, and I think Mr. Robbins will tell me for stealing this, but we tell them the third time, and I think it's most appropriate that continues to happen across all of us, because you can easily get distracted and the next thing that happens tomorrow takes our focus away. So that is why bringing it back, and rounds off nicely, bringing it back onto the local accountability meetings at districts will also help with that. Okay,
thanks for that. Again, you mentioned, and it is something that I have spoken about and attended conferences around the potential impact of Brexit and how the force might intend to mitigate any potential impact on their cross-border investigations. And it's really just to get a view around, what is your view of that, given some of the excellent work you talked about the joint investigation teams established with the Romanians and others, and how you see that going forward.
This is obviously a national issue.
Yeah.
There's a lot of national discussion taking place with both National Police Youth Council and the National Crime Agency. We are liaising very closely with government departments as Brexit conversations take place. We've raised our concerns around particularly things like the European arrest warrants and so on, but also around the intelligence and information flows that need to take place between not only the UK and European countries, but beyond that as well. So clearly there's an awful lot of work taking place at the moment to make sure that what we have very carefully built up is not only preserved, but actually built upon, but it will require some potential legislative changes that we need to have sight of. And of course, the last thing we want, and indeed to be fair to our European neighbours, the last thing they want, is a breakdown in any of the communication, the information exchange, which clearly impacts on this particular work stream, but could also impact on several others. So we are very much engaged at the moment in those conversations.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. I mean, I accept that, that myself and others have got a role to play with this as well, with government in getting some key messages across around, if at all possible, making sure that this area of work, but security issues in general, are not something to be negotiated away as part of a deal, because surely it's in all our interests for cooperation around human trafficking, modern-day slavery, but in fact terrorism, extremism, other types of crime remains really strong, because ultimately whatever our views are around Brexit, surely all of us want to live in safe communities and safe countries.
And I think what Warren has very ably described, and the work that you and the team have been doing has been fantastic about building those relationships into those European countries. I am confident that those relationships will stay no matter what the outcome of the Brexit conversations are and what's put in place. And that's why I think it's important to try and be at the forefront of all this. area of business that, as you say, sadly, Commissioner, is becoming day-to-day business because it is here to stay. We need to understand what the signs and signals are. I think the way that the campaigns have been working to try and raise awareness has been very good. The e-learning package is there or thereabouts and will again raise awareness and give some good case studies and examples of what the signs and signals are. And then clearly the main piece of work, I think, is to also bring partners on board to try and get them to also understand some of the issues. And we've had some really good examples very recently of people actually flagging issues up to us, some of which have been issues that we need to look into, some have been well-intentioned.
Yeah.
You know, that's at the end of the day, that's what we're aiming for.
No, thanks for that. And obviously, it's very commendable the relationships that have been built up with these other countries through their consulates and investigation teams. And I assume that you are passing some of this learning on to other colleagues around some of the barriers and pitfalls that you've come across.
Absolutely. I think the force team, as it stands, every district, every person, every member of West Yorkshire Police will be able to contact us and can contact us in relation to that. So I think we will continue to share. I've never had a problem not sharing or helping because it gets into your, under your skin and into your blood, doesn't it? So I think that's where it sits with us.
Okay. And the HMIC FRS report, which you touched on within the report about the police response to modern slavery, as you said, there are some positive comments in there regarding West Yorkshire's position and the work that we've done and what you've reported on. Can you just describe how you intend to address the recommendations in the report, in particular raising awareness amongst frontline officers and staff, working in partnership, and the seriousness of the issues at the senior leadership level?
I mean, the first thing is we now have the training and partnership officers has been there for a number of months now, which was a growth course that we was allowed to have. That's working both internally for police officers and police staff. Hence how come we've managed to get the e-learn package together, which will go live at the end of this month, as we've alluded to. But also working with partner agencies and other businesses across the whole of West Yorkshire, and advocating, coming to us and asking some of the questions, and we've got businesses now emailing in as well. So I kind of think that we're actually spreading that knowledge and that contact and communication being the key for most things that we do to make sure that we get that. Is just to start to have those conversations that I'm continuing. I've already stolen Mr. Robbins' line, so I can't do it again. But I do believe that our strategy in relation to communication needs to be strong, and we've gone through with our crime prevention colleagues in relation to making sure that our intranet and our screensavers is front and centre, and we all get one of those cycles through those to make sure that the messages are still consistent, that they've got touch into the e-learn, and keep going back and forth to it, so if they're not sure, review it and re-look it, and they can pick it up wherever they wish and ask it questions. And then the forums that we have, making sure that each are strong and present and different in each of the districts, but all feed into the West Yorkshire network, which I think provides that. Also an accountability mechanism from those non-government organisations out there to ask us questions and make us think about ourselves sometimes. So I think those messages are across the board there. And I won't forget the local accountability meetings, which really will cement this within our district's thought processes.
Yeah.
Warren, in the interactive learning package that we're pushing together, so again for the benefit of the viewers, this is about officers and staff being able to access video footage, if you like, of examples and know the signs and signals. Is there anything that we could put in the more public domain to help support that campaign so that members of the public could bring things to our attention as well?
Yes, we've fed it into, it's just more the interface compatibility, which I'm afraid is beyond my IT skills, but they were the words that was used. But yes, there is a chapter in there that we will utilise so that they'll put it onto the Force website, so then they'll have a link into it. So yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and we can make it available through YouTube and other things as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, super.
Thanks for that. And just finally, so just to comment and say that obviously it was great that you challenged that the outcome in the Operation Noseme case to get the sentence increase from 4 years to 7, making good use of the trafficking orders, risk orders, and I take it you feel they are working.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Commissioner. I think the thing that we should just put around those is we shouldn't have too many. Not because I'm decrying the work that comes with it. It should be very focused and on those particular people to allow victims to come forward when we know there's more victims there. So it sends that clear message out. So I think if we focus them appropriately, yes, they're a very useful tool.
And just to clarify, so on page 3 of the report, it talks about the top 5 nationalities of suspects, and it says United Kingdom.
Yes.
So that's.
Yeah.
Just wanted to check that's accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't just, you know, I don't apportion blame in relation to Eastern European countries. That's just where the figures come together. But you know, within the United Kingdom, we have people that enslave people, unfortunately, and we, you know, in a number of different areas. And I touched some of it towards. You'll see on some of the reports we talk about child sexual exploitation and abuse, and we take those out of the figures. But when you look at these figures, that's where some of that and a bulk of that comes from. I'm looking to my right, Mr. Minton's in the room, but you know, it's more an area of specialty for himself than I.
But am I right in saying then that the numbers from the UK have increased because when we looked at this previously, whilst we knew there were suspects and victims in the UK, that appears to have gone up the ladder, if you like, in terms of the numbers.
Yeah, and it's based around education and learning and understanding as well.
Yeah. Okay. Any other sort of questions?
Just a quick one. Warren, you mentioned that all the brilliant work that's taken place and great results, and even managed to get in an increase in recorded crime is a good thing. So that's always helpful. But in your report, you're articulating that this area of offending and victimisation scores second in the Morale Matrix, so clearly still an area of high risk to the county. So do you see in the attention and deliberations that have taken place, do you see any new opportunities to further mitigate this risk?
I think the new opportunities is around academia in a lot of respects, because we're now starting to get a bank of intelligence. We have more victims and suspects that we can actually look at, and some of the work that we heard from that Mr. Adams and his team have been doing, I think we should replicate around those numbers, and I think the academic work will actually help to mitigate that risk over and above the work that I've already articulated.
I think the challenge is that the force strategic threat and risk assessment currently is flagging this up as our second highest risk because of our lack of understanding at this moment in time of what the true picture is. So far better to elevate that risk in case we are way off the mark rather than to underestimate what the problem may well be. And so we've got a gap. As our officers and staff improve their knowledge and awareness and put more intelligence into the system, as our partners do, and as we get more and more cooperation from the public, hopefully that risk will reduce, provided, of course, that we have sufficient resource to manage all of the issues that are raised with us.
Okay, well, thank you for that update, and again, thank you to you and all the team for the work that's ongoing. Thanks so much.